Good afternoon, everyone. Shikha Singhal. I lead the data science practice at Axtria, a company that combines data analytics technology to help life sciences companies improve patient outcomes and drive business growth. Thank you for joining me for what promises to be a fascinating conversation on 2 years of generative AI, hype versus reality. But before we dive deeper into the conversation, let's take a quick minute to appreciate the fact that the technology that we are discussing today, just about a few years back, it was more of a science fiction than reality, right? I mean, who could have thought that in 2024 we'll be sitting here and having serious conversations on whether Gen AI can paint better than Picasso or write better poetry than Shakespeare? But here we are, and someone told me it's customary at Cypher to do a poll. So a quick show of hands, how many of us have used generative AI in the past few months? Wow. Everyone's hand is up. So at least we are awake. By the way, please keep your hands up. Now, keep your hands up if you believe that Gen AI has significantly improved your productivity and creativity. Okay, that's a mixed bag, very interesting. All right, so let's find it out ourselves. I think I'll ask the panelists to introduce themselves. We'll start with Anish.
Hi, everyone. Anish here from MIQ. So MIQ is an organization which works in the programmatic space, and me sort of build analytic solutions, technology solutions to connect advertisers and customers, right, on a real-time basis. So that's me outside my work, a photographer, wildlife photographer, and footballer.
Thank you, Anish. Gurbans.
Hi, good afternoon, friends. Gurbans here from Fiserv. I lead product innovation and intelligent automation, and as part of that, I also am part of the central team which drives AI within the organization. I'll tell you more about myself through the discussion. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Gurbans. Srinivas.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Srinivas. I oversee the technology adoption and new product adoption in IOPEX. Looking forward to the interesting conversation here, and also probably, we can meet offline, some of you maybe. Thank you.
Thank you, Srinivas. Natraju.
Hey everyone, good afternoon again. Good to see that there is a reasonable sized crowd post lunch, so hopefully we'll do good justice for your time. So I lead the Walmart marketplace data science and engineering team. So my main role is to leverage data, AI, and develop products which can help sellers grow the business. So that's what I do for a living. In terms of hobbies, I love to travel a lot. Lately into meditation and yoga. That's a little bit about me.
Thank you. Pranam.
Good afternoon. My name is Pranam. I'm from Genpact, an AI-first company. I'm an AI practitioner, and I partner with our clients to transform their business by leveraging data and AI. Hopefully, in the course of today's discussion, we'll probably give 1 or 2 examples. So looking forward to learning a lot.
Thank you. So let's start with you, Gurbans. What do you consider the most significant milestones in the last 2 years of the journey of generative AI, and how have these milestones impacted the technology's potential?
Sure, Shikha. And I'll take you beyond a little few years because the story is more interesting if you go back a couple of decades. And I'll kind of intertwine with it in terms of how I kind of got inducted into AI. So that will be kind of a combined story. So I was in grade 4 when I remember on one Sunday, Dad and I were reading the book on Gulliver's Travels. I don't know how many of you have read it, or how many of you are reading it to your kids. This is by Jonathan Swift. It was written in 1726. And if you have read the third part of the book, the protagonist goes to a flying island called Lapute. And there, as he's being shown the island by the king and the men there, he comes across a machine which is 20 feet by 20 feet square, with wooden blocks in the middle, which have paper pasted on it and words written in their language. There are 16 people on each side with laden handles. And at the command, they kind of turn the handle and the blocks turn, and sentences get formed. And when a good sentence is formed, there's a scribe who notes the sentence and then speaks it out. I have not come across a human language generating machine being conceptualized before 1726. And I think human mind has been working at and has always been intrigued with intelligence, and we have always wanted to create machines which simulate intelligence. And this is, I think, the first one. And I remember in the session in the morning, Vignesh was talking about David Hume, but I think Jonathan Swift beat David Hume by almost like 13 years, because David Hume published the Skepticism of Reasoning around 1739, 1740. So that's the history from where Gen AI started. So it's not a flash in the pan, and that's what I want to emphasize. There has been hundreds of years of work that has gone behind this. So let's kind of trace it back. So after those 1726 and 1739, let's kind of quickly drop into 1900s. And 1906, we come up with Markov models. And Andrei Markov came up with those models which could generate sequences. So this was the first time you had a mathematical model which can generate sequences. Then we had, after Markov models, somewhere around 1943, we had self-organizing systems come in. 1947, self-organizing systems which came in, which included cellular automata, genetic algorithms, swarm intelligence, swarm robotics, multi-agent systems. Then we had 1943 to 1948, and you would all know this. Perceptron was built, and we had multi-layer perceptron, but this was not a software simulation. This was a hardware device which simulated the retina of the eye. It had 20 by 20 neurons in the input layer, so 400 neurons, 500 associative neurons in the hidden layer, 8 neurons in the output layer. So this was a huge transition that, you can see the transitions that are happening both on the hardware compute side and also on the software and also on the mathematical concepts that we are building. But of course, perceptrons didn't last too much. There were many classes of problems that perceptrons couldn't solve, so they kind of went into a kind of a little background. But then in 1960, genetic algorithms came in by John Holland. And 1964, the first expert system came in by Joseph Weizenbaum.
Gurban, we are talking about the last 2 years of generative AI.
I'm coming to that, because last 2 years only scaling has happened. The most interesting thing has happened in the 1900s. So ELIZA, which was the first kind of a chatbot, it simulated a doctor, written in a slip language, and see that. And if you look at the self-organizing system, the genetic algorithm, this is where the mathematics got developed for optimizations. 1970, we had this gradient descent algorithm created. So all this culminated into what we have in 2014, when Ian Goodfellow came out with the GANs, the generative adversarial networks. And that kind of was a big kind of a push towards what we have today. So GANs were more like competing machines in a zero-sum game, but we also had vector encoding networks. And then from there, we had, in something 2017, we had Attention is All You Need. It was based on the Beatles song, Love is All You Need. But that paper kind of was pivotal to see where we are today. From there, we had LSTMs, RNNs, CNNs, and then we had BERT. And then, of course, the last 2 years, we saw the development and the transformation that happened with these algorithms. Primarily, what has happened in the last 2 years is all the basic work was done in the last 100 years. What has happened is the compute power has gone up. I was doing my research in 1989, between 1989 to 93, on genetic algorithms and neural networks and so on. And I left it because the compute power was not there. And all those algorithms now started working because the compute power was there. And that made a big difference. So you have data centers with thousands of GPUs. I mean, Elon Musk setting up his 100,000 GPU center. This is what is making the difference currently. It is the scaling. And the scaling laws will continue. And therefore, we had GPT-2, GPT-3, GPT-4, 4.0, 4.1. So from till 4.0, we still had where the intelligent systems acted like human beings. But if you go to 4.01, this is where even the rational thinking is coming in. The system is able to rationalize and think with you. That's a huge incremental step forward.
Yep.
So going from just acting like human to also thinking like human. And if you have not tried 4.01, you have actually missed it. You should go back and try 4.01. But it all needs huge compute power behind. So it is just not the GPUs, the CPUs, but the networking architectures, the data center architectures, everything, the storage mechanisms, everything has influenced where we are today.
Yep. Quite an exhaustive journey. So Srinivas, if you can help us understand some of the notable examples from industries that you are seeing of Gen AI making transformative difference, and is it more pronounced in some industries than others?
Yeah. I think there are lots of industries which are positively impacted by Gen AI. But let me touch upon a couple of industries where we see profound impact in the last few quarters, I would say. So the first one is the software development, right? So which is one of my favorite topics. If you see, especially if you are one who has some sort of coding experience, right? So the most tedious and boring part of the coding is writing code documentation, writing boilerplate code, or even writing unit tests, right? So that's one of the most tedious tasks, right? So Gen AI is helping to write all of those automatically to a large extent, right? If not 100%, even they are reaching up to like 60-70%, and then finding the bugs in the existing code, or if you're not following a specific code pattern, there are tools available which can highlight and make the required corrections, etc. And finally, in the your code pipelines, right? So there are tools available to review the code automatically and suggest what can be improved, etc. Right? So all of this is greatly improving the developer experience, right? So removing their boredom in writing the monotonous or tedious tasks, and instead focusing something which is more complex, more strategic, etc. Right? So similarly, if you look at healthcare domain, which is another domain, there is a lot of progress happening, but because healthcare usually involves longer timelines, you do not see all the results out yet. But one significant example which has come out is the in silico medicine, if you have heard about them. So they are able to generate a new drug candidate in like 18 months, which traditionally used to take more than a decade, right? So Gen AI is especially revolutionary in terms of synthesizing or generating novel compounds, right? So which is going to greatly help in the scientific research and breakthroughs, right? So, and the other two industries which I would briefly touch upon are the marketing and content generation and the customer support, right? So, I think many of you would have experienced the multimodal LLMs, right? So, wherein you can generate audio, video, images, etc., right? So, broadly, if you see the generative AI made the both technology and the creativity, democratized it, right? So even in the customer support, you see, right? So I think many of you would have experienced the virtual assistants, chatbots, etc., right? So many of them are heavily relying on Gen AI, right? So I think there is a lot of scope to improve further. There are, the models are very large and requires a lot of compute power, etc. Right? So with evolving RAG models, fine-tuning models, etc., I'm sure in next couple of years we'll have much better models.
Right. So Pranam, Srinivas talked about some of the areas where it's working. I wanted to ask you, how does this initial hype compare with the current reality? Do you think there are areas where generative AI is falling short of expectations?
I think that's a question that's on everybody's mind, right? And this actually reminds me of a quote. It said that, this is a few decades back, it said the factories of the future would have only two employees, a man, and pardon me for the gender bias, but a person and a dog. The person's role is to feed the dog, and the dog's role is to ensure the person doesn't touch the equipment. So that's, if you relate it to Gen AI, a couple of years back, that's what we spoke about, right? Human out of the loop, everything gets taken care of. But today, when we're looking at it, it's not a complex reality. So let's quickly look at, you all know about Gartner's hype cycle. It has 4 stages. Let's touch on 2 of them. One is the innovative triggers, and the second is height of expectation. Most of the technologies that we see today, like it could be multimodal AI, open source LLMs, they're all in the first 2 phases, which means the market is at a stage, an early stage market, which is good. When I talk to a lot of clients, they are seeing value in generative AI. But where are they seeing it? They're seeing it in short-term ROI. The first thing that companies do is go after quick wins, like I need these documents summarized. Those are quick wins that help in efficiency, driving efficiency. The true value of generative AI is when you look at long-term view. Can you get generative AI to drive up your revenue? Can you use generative AI to enhance customer experience? Can you get generative AI to help you in innovation? That is when you will unlock the potential of generative AI. Right?
Yeah.
So we are headed there in the right direction. Probably a lot of challenges that we can talk about as we go along.
Yeah, absolutely. And you spoke about, using generative AI to drive revenue. So one of the very popular case studies that we have in the life sciences industry is in the drug discovery process, where we are using generative AI to identify and optimize suitable drug candidates, thereby significantly reducing the time and cost. But are there any other examples, real-world applications, where you are seeing significant improvements because of generative AI?
So maybe I can take more retail use case. At Walmart, we've been pioneering this whole next era of retail, what we call as adaptive retail, and a lot of it is towards meeting the customer where the need is, which means the experiences will be a lot more personalized. And we use a lot of technologies like AI and AR related ones for some of it. And Gen AI is one of the most important aspect to make some of those adaptive retail happen. One example I can think of is more search, which is all of us use it. It's like a huge change with respect to how we used to do keyword-based search to now you can write like a conversation, right? Like instead of searching for particular party supplies, I can write saying, hey, can you help me find products for a party of 4, for a cricket match party or something, right? And then we have an algorithm which does this mutually exclusive, kind of a framework and collectively exhaustive, which picks products from different product types, right, which can't be done if you use a keyword-based search, and then aggregates it all and then surfaces it to you. That kind of makes the experience so frictionless that it becomes your life easy, right? So that is some example I can think of more from a retail point of view.
Yeah, also just to add there, right, I'll talk about few things that we are observing in the ad tech, right? Also, here I would bring another trend, right? We are all sort of consuming content at a very fast pace, right? Most of our life is now consuming content, right? So now from a brand point of view, what is the right time to engage with a customer? Is it in YouTube or Hotstar? When it is? So that's the problem, right? Now, how do you deal with it, right? When the attention of user has shrinking, we don't remember too many things. Like, I personally don't remember that the movie that I watched 2 weeks back. That's the overwhelming consumption that we are doing. Now, from the brand, that's a challenge. That how will I keep my consumer attached to my brand? So what we are seeing here, right, is hyper-personalization of ads. right? So some days I might be a vegetarian. Some days I am a non-vegetarian. Now, when a food ad comes, at that particular day, if I see a veg thali, I may get engaged. But at the same date, if I get a non-veg thali ad, I will not recall that brand. So this hyper-personalization is happening in AdTech. That is one. Second thing that, again, the observation, the data is expanding. The data that powers GenAI, right? We need to enrich the data. Like, to give an example, like, if we use NLP to categorize what is paper fry, right? It will categorize it as a food. Is paper fry a food? No, it's a furniture thing. Same thing we can talk about Banana Republic. Is it a food or a clothing chain? So now with GenAI, that we are bringing the internet context to those words, right? How do you use? So paperboard. Paperboard is not paper, or it's a juice thing. So with GenAI, our categorization of data is changing, right? And that's how we are leveraging them into AdTech to sort of connect brand to the right user at the right moment with the right message, right? That's the biggest problem, and we do see significant movement. Few of our solutions are already in place, and that's, I would say, in AdTech, the most changed thing that we have observed in last couple of years.
Yeah, very interesting. So Nataraju, if I can ask you this, what are the main technical, operational, and ethical challenges that you see in deployment of generative AI?
Yeah, I think like Pranam said, while we thought everything is solved, it's not there yet, right? But did we have value? Yes, we did get value out of whatever we've deployed so far. If I look back a little bit, some of the challenges with GenAI are not very different than a typical AI solution. But more specifically in the GenAI space, I can categorize some of the problems more in terms of scale, in terms of cost for serving, in terms of how do you evaluate the performance of a solution, right? And then around integrating with the rest of the workflow, whatever system is already there, right? So if I go back to the search example I spoke, when you're searching, you expect the response to be like in, sub-second, right? Which means, you don't have this time to, run very, very large language models. So how do you find creative architectures to go through those kind of problems is something that, we are working on quite seriously. The other piece compared to the traditional solutions is more around responsible AI, because you're kind of automating a lot more things. You're understanding the language. So there is a lot of information that is getting packed in small pieces of solutions. So at Walmart, especially what we've taken is we've made like this responsible AI pledge, which is more around a few principles like fairness, accountability, customer centricity, security, trust, privacy. So if we can bypass some of these challenges, then the grass looks very green, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. And you didn't speak about skills. At least that's one area where we see a lot of operational challenges, because all of a sudden with Gen AI, you now need some skills which were earlier not important. App integrators and software developers, UI, UX designers, and domain specialists and stuff. So Anish, if I may ask you, what are some of the most significant barriers in the adoption of Gen AI?
Yeah, so that's a good one. I think I don't have doubt on adoption of Gen AI. The thing is, there will be now people who are rightfully using it, they will be ahead. People who are not going to adopt to it the way it should be, they will be just lacking. But adoption is going to happen, right? And I think fellow panelists said about, and that's the biggest thing, is that seeing beyond short term, right? Currently, most of our focus have been very short term. Like Gartner said that majority of the POCs will be dead by 2025. But on the other side, we are also seeing reports that the investment that is going in Gen AI, it's almost returning 3x, right? So I think it's in between. People who have figured out how as an enterprise Gen AI is going to solve their business, they are going to go ahead. People who are still trying to play with the toy that we have right now, maybe just lagging behind, right? So seeing beyond the standard KPI of saving time, operational efficiency, to more business enabler, financial bottom line, top line, how it can enrich those. That's what one thing I think people who will find it, they will go ahead. Second, I would say is the entire data privacy side of it, right? Who is now coming from a B2B sector, right? We consume data from other places, right? So as per contract, where should our data go to OpenAI, right? Which data should go? What should we comply at, right? Because we are answerable. Now, laws in different markets like GDPR, CCPA, they strictly say that what data you can use. So enter this privacy with the biasness, and last but not the least, here is the accountability. Now, from an organization's output of GenAI, who is accountable for the output? Is it the platform? Is it the LLMs? Or the end users, right? I think a clear definition, council, organization structure on defining who is accountable for the use of this, I think we will take some time to get to that. These two majorly outside the financial burden, right? These things are not cheap. Do we really have ROI long term? Because finance and everybody will say that we are investing. Where are the results, right? To be little bit more patient with indirect revenue, indirect return, these are three things in my mind that comes that can hinder the growth of GenAI adoption.
Which basically means we absolutely need a very strong change management strategy in order to ensure adoption. So that brings me to the question, what are some of the future trends that you guys foresee in this area? You know, where is generative AI headed? And maybe that's open to all of you.
So one thing I can think of, I think we touched on personalization part a little bit. I think there is a lot of areas where the productivity gains will be seen very significantly. Like in Walmart, I see we center around customers, internal associates, which is your software engineers, store associates. There is going to be a lot of productivity gain because of some of these applications. And that will make a lot of changes with respect to how the business impact will get created.
See, what will happen is when we start doing Gen AI related POC projects in Fiserv, we realize the POCs are done very quickly. 3-4 days, a POC with Gen AI is done. But now when I have to take it to production, there's a long tail there with reviews, with cybersecurity, with legal, with ethics, and so on. So if you have to really kind of keep it still agile, and if you have to kind of increase the life cycle of getting from idea to impact, you will have to bring all the stakeholders up front with you. Because there are data issues, there are response issues, there are stakeholder engagement issues. So there are lots of things which need to be addressed upfront, which we need to do right away at this point in time. Because and the other is, what does Gen AI need to be able to work? And that is data. And a lot of time, real world data is not available to the innovators to be able to go and build applications. So how can I enable them? Have platforms in your organization. So what has India done? If you look at India AI, they are providing you curated data sets which startups and research organizations can use. So mimic that in your organization. Create clean data sets which people can use to be able to kind of build new Gen AI applications quickly. And then, of course, it will follow the path of reviews and so on. So that cannot be stopped.
I can come at it from a slightly different point of view. When we talk about trends, what will we see in the future? If you are looking at a Gen AI only solution, it will stay at a POC. It will not scale. The way to look at it, take a top-down approach. What problem are you trying to solve? And Gen AI is one component of that. Let me give you a quick example. Inside sales, right? When you're trying to reach out to a customer or trying to reach out to convert a customer, if we're all analytics professionals out here, so what you've done till now is qualifying leads, scoring leads, determining who you should reach out to, so on and so forth. Now, bring in Gen AI into that situation. if you are able to equip the caller who is reaching out to the prospect with information about the prospect beforehand, number one. Number two, as that person calls at real time, if you're able to coach the agent when he or she is calling using generative AI. Number three, sentiment analysis. You are cold calling for all practical purposes, even in a B2B scenario. Can you judge at real time the sentiment of the call and alter your script accordingly? And last but not the least, the next best action. If your prospect is responding to you in a certain way, what should you say? Now, employing GenAI for that completes your solution. So it should be looked as a continuum and not just as, here's a cool GenAI solution, because that will not scale.
So thank you so much for your time. And guys, thank you so much for joining me for this discussion. It is very clear that GenAI is here to stay. Yes, there are challenges, but let's continue to collaborate and build a future where AI can be leveraged to our benefit. Thank you.